Welcome back to another Director Q&A hosted by Wildscreen. Today, I'm joined by Felipe Rosa, director of The Birdcarver, a short film included in our 2022 official selection. Welcome, Felipe.
Hello, thank you.
Our official selection competition recognises original stories from authentic voices all across the globe. Could you let me know where you're joining us from today?
I'm here in Bristol. I'm working at Wildstar right now. Yeah, I've been living here in Bristol since 2019. So let's see how long I'm going to stay here.
With COVID, it feels
Yeah.
But prior to being in Bristol, you were based in Brazil. So this is a kind of story from your home country. Is that right?
Yeah.
Fantastic. In terms of your experience prior to the Birdcarver, had you had much filmmaking experience? Had you worked on anything before in the nature space? I'm interested to hear more about your background and what you've worked on before.
So my background is a little bit, it comes from a long time. So I started studying biology and the end of I think it was in 1999. I started studying biology. So I ended up graduating in biology. So, but during while I was undertaking the course, I started enjoying taking pictures and not just working inside a lab as a scientist. So my passion grew, and I wanted to undertake a photography course. But in my city, where I used to live, there wasn't any course related to photography, to wildlife photography. So they were just starting the filmmaking courses over there. So halfway to finish my biology course, I started this other one, this filmmaking course. So I was undertaking both of them at the same time, and by the end, I graduated both of them. And so for the last almost 20 years, I've been working as a cinematographer. So I worked TV series, drama, documentaries, all kinds of stuff related to filmmaking. But in 2019, I thought it would be nice to change a little bit my career, and I really wanted to combine both of my specialities. So I wanted to work with biology again because I put it aside for a long time, and I came to Bristol to undertake the UE's Masters in Wildlife Filmmaking. So I'm here in Bristol since then.
It's perfect. It's a perfect way to sort of marry your love of filmmaking and beautiful visual science behind it all.
Isn't it? Because in Brazil, I don't know too many people who work especially with wildlife filmmaking. There are a couple of cinematographers, but it's not something very known over there. So I came here to Bristol, and then I met some Brazilians who were working there, and then my knowledge got a little bit bigger in this about this in Brazil. But by that time, I didn't know anyone who was working with this. So I came to Bristol, and then my horizon expanded a lot.
And you obviously fell in love with the city or the community here.
I love Bristol. Before I moved to Bristol, I lived a little bit in Ireland, so acclimatized with European climates. But Bristol is amazing. I'm loving living here.
It's fantastic. I feel like there's so much opportunity. You mentioned as well that you're currently working with Wildstar after having graduated your UE course.
Yeah. And it's amazing because you're always relating with meeting someone who's working something in Brazil, something in Africa, something in Asia, and you're always exchanging experience. It's amazing being here and developing my work, and it's incredible living here. Yeah.
It's definitely opens a sort of new door for opportunities. It's still so global. Like as you said, you're still reaching out to people all across the world.
I met more Brazilians that work with wildlife filmmaking here in Bristol than in Brazil. Yeah, because during the Wildscreen, I met some Brazilians that came here to present their work, and so people that I just knew by name, I met them in person. Wildscreen was amazing for this kind of network.
Oh, that's great to hear. Great.
Yeah,
Brazilian community is
yeah,
Wildscreen too.
yeah.
So onto your film. The Birdcarver is obviously a fantastic short film. How would you summarize it, maybe for someone who hasn't yet watched it, into 3 words?
So I would say in 3 words, when I was making the film, I have one theme in particular that I wanted to tackle. It was the film. The film is it's basically about loss. It's a character based documentary. So I chose Eloir because he lives in a haven right next to a haven to bird migration, the southern parts of Brazil.
Mhm.
So since he was a child, he saw those birds come and go, birds that comes from the Alaska. They come from all the way from North America to the southern part of Brazil to because of the seasons. They are trying to get warmer climates during the winter. They go to this place. So since he was a child, he was always looking to those birds coming and going, and he was a hunter, and he changed his mind.
Mhm.
So he so I think when he was a child, he started carving birds out of wood. And one of the things that touched me is because he carves those birds, and he didn't want to sell it because he loves
Mhm.
so much the birds, and he has this attachment to the birds. And he said to me, I like to see the birds going. I don't like to see the birds going, but I like when they come back. This gives me new energy, and I like to see them breeding and everything. So I try to touch a little bit more of the parallels between his life and the birds. So he's seeing he's one of the persons that is noticing the diminish of numbers of the
Mhm.
birds. So I was trying to bring this parallels between his feelings, as his human life, and the birds and the environment. He losing the environment. The birds goes away every year, and I touched some familiar questions as well. He's going to lose his daughter, so I make those parallels, and I think my main focus was to analyze all of this into his character.
No, I think it's really poignant that you say that, because it's so clear when you're watching it that there is this natural parallel between him talking about the bird migration and then his daughter who wants to sort of fly the nest, as it were, and leave him and go on to bigger things. It is a really beautiful natural parallel. It draws me to ask how you found him in the first place, because he's such a fantastic contributor. Where did you come across him? Did you know him?
So, as I was saying, I started as a biologist.
Mhm.
And when I started to develop, to understand how to take pictures and all of this, the Lagoa do Peixe is a national park in Brazil, very close to where I live, 200 kilometers from where I was born.
Okay.
And it was the first place that I took my first film role. So I go there
Oh,
since beginning of 2000. And then when I went back to Brazil, because during the COVID, everything was in lockdown here in the UK, I was developing a film in Ireland and Dolphins. I still need to finish this film. But during everything was going into lockdown and Brazil wasn't in lockdown. So I spoke with my parents. I'm going to spend the holidays and Christmas with you. I'm going to stay for 2 months, and then I come back and I finish my film in Ireland, and that's it. But Brazil went into lockdown. The COVID
oh,
thing got it out of hand. Everything was locked. So instead of staying just 1 or 2 months in Brazil, I stayed 8 months over there. So while I was there, the things weren't that bad. So I was thinking, so I'm going to stay here a little bit more. I'm going to do something in the Amazon, but I due to COVID, everything was locked, and I couldn't go too far. I try Amazon, Pantanal, all sorts of places in Brazil, but it was impossible to get out to get too far away from where I was staying. So I got the idea. Maybe let's try something close to where I live. So I got the idea. Let's go to where it all began. For me, it was it was a complete circle for me because it was where I started taking pictures. And then I wanted to do something more related to the impacts of the environment, what was happening there. But then I found him, and then as I was learning about him, and I learned that his daughter was going to leave his house and was going to marry. So I think we have a story here. So then I focus more into his life and how he feels, and that's how the film came to be.
No, it's really beautiful. I think through COVID and the pandemic, it meant that so many people weren't able to travel to the places that they were intending to, but I think it kind of forced everyone to look inwards at the amazing stories on their doorstep and the ones that they have a personal connection to. And I feel like just through all of our official selection, but also the past 2 years of filmmaking, there's so many gems that stand out that local people have told about their local places and wildlife that otherwise we maybe wouldn't have had. So it's been able to produce something really beautiful, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Because I was speaking with one of my friends who helped me during the process of creating the documentary and researching, and I said to him, at some point I will do a documentary about the Lagoa do Peixe. Maybe now it's the time. Let's go for it. He said, yeah, you're going to do it sometime. Let's do it. And then he helped me, and then let's go, and we did.
Oh yeah, there's not really a more perfect time than to do it.
Exactly.
So in terms of your film as well, we talked a bit about Eloir's daughter and how she's looking to fly the nest, and how her intentions are from the film, her intentions are to kind of leave in order to communicate the fact that they're having this issue with biodiversity loss and the numbers of birds are decreasing, and she feels that she has to leave the local area in order to communicate that. So I wanted to ask, in terms of your film's impacts, obviously you've taken this local story that so many people wouldn't have heard otherwise, but you broadcast it through the medium of film. Did you have any goals for local or international impact when you set out to make this story?
So as I told you, at first I was planning a film much more impactful and to analyze. My first cut actually analyzed much more what were the dangers, what were the threats in the area, what was happening. I did some long interviews about them telling me what is happening over there. So as the film developed to more a personal film, so I lost a little bit of this side of the film. I just tackle a little bit when she said she's having problems in her city, because actually in this kind of small towns in Brazil, it's far away from the big capitals and all this. When you try to fight for the environment, the reception is not that good. So one of the reasons that she's leaving is because she was trying to teach, because she was teaching at school, she was researching, and a lot of people didn't like what she was doing. So that was one of the big reasons that she was leaving. She was going to marry, and she met a guy from another city as well. But the main reason she wants to leave is because the community doesn't like this kind of thing, because it's going to change how they deal with the environment. They don't want that much. I wanted to tackle this issue a lot more, but it was supposed to be just a 12-minute film, so I focused more on their feelings and their sentiments. So I lost a little bit. But what I'm doing, I had some help from some NGOs in Brazil. They work with birds preservation. So I showed the film to them, and they're going to distribute through schools in Brazil. So I applied for some other festivals in Brazil, and they have some connection with schools. So my films, I think, is having a good reception with this kind of audience.
No, that's fantastic to hear. I feel like what's important as well is having human stories and having local communities depicted on screen, because when you're watching that as a member of a local community, you can see yourself represented and you can kind of identify with that. It's so important that gets shown back in the local area and more people start to feel the passion of of him and all of his family as well.
Yeah.
But no, that's a really good plan. I hope it screens across loads of different schools in the area.
Yeah.
So in total, how long were you actually working on the film? I know you mentioned you were in Brazil for about 8 months. So how much of that were you filming this for?
So I was in Brazil for 8 months, and 7 months almost 7 months I was locked inside my parents' house.
Oh,
So, but I arrived in December. I think December 2020. Everything was open, and then since January until June, everything was during lockdown. So it was impossible to go out. No vaccines. It was terrible. So when the lockdowns, people started to have their vaccination and everything. So in June, I have a couple of weeks, and then I tried to go there and film and start filming, but the things got worse and worse in Brazil. And in June, things started to open a little bit. And when they open, I just said to that, "Are you okay for me to go and film you?" And then I went there, filming them for 2 weeks, and then I got my first plane back to Europe and come back. The good thing is, because as I knew the place and I was going there quite frequently, I had a lot of B-rolls from the place. So the main thing was to film them the interviews and the relation, and then all the birds and everything I already had. So I combined a little bit what I had and what I needed.
nice. It's very good problem solving for kind of fitting in what you have and then capturing what you need.
Yeah.
And so in terms of, I guess, through the whole process, but probably mostly from those 2 weeks, what was your favorite moment of production?
My favorite moment, because I filmed almost entirely by myself. So it was a very lonely process. So I had to meet at first Eloir wasn't there, so I started filming with his daughter and his wife, and then I started to film a little bit of the community that didn't got into the film. So I started to learn a little bit more of the community and learn about them. Then I started to actually filming Eloir carving the birds, going out. So it was okay process. And then I said to them, "I'm going to leave you for 1 week. I'm going to film just the birds, to film some landscapes." And filming the landscapes by myself. And after COVID, I was for 7 months, and then almost 1 year locked in here in Europe. So it was a really good process after that, just to film the birds and being in that kind of environment with dunes and grasslands and right next to the sea. So it was a nice moment during the process. So I knew I had almost the entirety of the film, so I was relaxed to do just to film some birds and some landscapes.
No, I think a lot of people found solace in going outside in nature, obviously when it was permitted, during the past 2 years. So I can definitely understand, and I'm sure lots of people can relate to that as well.
A funny thing that happened when I came back to England. I was in November. I filmed in June, July, and I came here in November. No, I came here in September. And then after a couple of months, when I was almost finishing the film, the girl that was leaving the film, the Eloir's daughter, she said, "I'm going to leave the city. I'm going to find another life." And as we were talking, I was telling, there is the birds that are residents, that doesn't leave, doesn't migrate, and there are the birds that does the migration. And I told Eloir, "Your father is the bird that lives here, and I'm going to make this balance, and you're going to be the one who leaves the nest and finds another life." And she, "It's amazing, I loved it." And then after a couple of months, when I was finishing the film, I received a call from her, and she said, "My marriage didn't work out. I'm going to stay here in
No.
in my city. I'm going to stay with my father." So now she still is at her hometown and live with her father, but she started undertaking a master's degree, I think, over there. So I think
that's cool. Is that in
one of
is it like an ornithology or sort of conservation masters? Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry to hear about her marriage, but
I'm sorry, but yeah, but she said I'm fine. And there's other I can find some other things to do.
In terms of obviously you mentioned you're at WildStar, working at WildStar at the moment. Are you working on any personal projects?
So I have a couple of personal projects going. I need to finish this documentary that I did in Ireland. I have another documentary that I'm working on a series about mangroves. I work with the Mangrove Action Project as well. So okay. I think beginning of this month they released they had a photographic awards from they received pictures from the entire world about mangroves. So the mangrove day, I think it was in July. So with this idea to promote a mangrove, so I think it's the 4th year in a row they are doing the photographic awards. So we are developing a series of mangrove community-based. They have some projects that are trying to preserve the mangroves. So we went to Thailand and we filmed a story about an old woman. She planted mangroves for 20 years almost. And because the mangroves used to protect her house from the waves of tsunamis. So due to a series of reasons, they destroyed the mangroves. So the waves were hitting her house without any protection. So she started to plant by herself. So after 20 years where there wasn't anything, there is a whole mangrove because of her. So we went there, we filmed her story. So due to a series of problems, we had to get the translation. So we're finally getting the translation. So we are working on this one. I was researching another story in Brazil, and my friend is working on a couple of other stories. And after we came back from Thailand, we were researching, and we found a story about mangroves in London. So we are developing.
Oh.
Yeah, it's quite an unusual story, but it's mangrove related in London. So we are creating the mangroves is in this story is like a idea or ideal. So I think it's going to be a surprising one.
Yeah, I'm definitely surprised.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's excellent. It's interesting. I remember seeing some of the pictures from the Mangrove Photography Awards. I think it was last week that they were published. Yeah, it's fascinating, and it's really there's a project behind that as well to help make an impact.
Yeah, I am from Brazil, and I were never really into mangroves. So after I met this friend, he's British and he works at the Mangrove Action Project. Then I started to understand more about mangroves, and then I am in love with this biome.
In terms of the projects you're working on, then, like with the mangrove project, is there anyone in the natural history community that you'd like to connect with, or you're hoping to?
So, I'm really into like working with these social environmental stories. Not just I like wildlife, but I like always this a little bit of the human side of this. As I think we have a lot of things to tell. Here in Bristol, we are it's very focused on the wildlife and pure wildlife and some presenter-led, but it doesn't tackle too much this relation with humans and environment. So I'd like to get in touch more to understand who is doing more of this kind of stuff with environmental and people and the problems. And I would love to get in touch and learn more about what other people are doing and to exchange experiences.
And so if anyone watching this wants to get in touch, what's the best way to reach out to you?
So I have my Instagram. It's at Felipe, Felipe, Photocine, Photocine, and Facebook and LinkedIn, and Felipe Photocine at gmail.com.
Fantastic. I can put the links in the video description.
Perfect.
Anyone can get in touch. I think you've got a talent manager webpage as well.
Yeah, I have a talent manager. I thought it was a person. I know I have.
Fantastic. Well, I'll put the links in descriptions for anyone who's watched along and would love to get in touch about mangroves or birds or Brazil, then they're very welcome to.
Definitely.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Felipe. It's
been
fun to learn more about behind the scenes of the Birdcarver. And I wish you all the best with your upcoming projects. The Birdcarver will be available to watch on demand on our film library until the 16th of December for festival delegates. Details on how to purchase a ticket, if you haven't yet already, are down in the description below.